All right, we are live. I'm on with my good friend and coach, Dr. Don Macdonald. Dr. Don Macdonald is he's a chiropractor. He's the author of the book, The Underdog Curse, and he also coaches chiropractors through his Vitality Shift program that he co-created with his wife, Brandi. Dr. Don's coached me personally through a couple of my practices, and just all around awesome dude. And I appreciate you coming on to have a conversation, man.
Hey, man, you're doing lots of good things. I'm proud of you. You're right. It's always easy to coach someone when they're an awesome student. So good job.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. And for those who may not know who you are, I know a lot of people, if they're chiropractors, they do. But for the people who don't, who are you and what's your chiropractic story?
I'm a Canadian, so I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I actually grew up in a little mountain town, and all the way through high school, the only thing I cared about was basketball. Like I lived and breathed basketball. I had some challenges with my knees when I was, I think, about 14 years old. I started getting tendonitis in my knees, and I found out that anti-inflammatories would temporarily make my knees feel better. So I became like a anti-inflammatory addict and a Tylenol addict. And basically, that only worked while I was on drugs, and it was pretty frustrating because eventually my medical doctor at the time even said, "You probably shouldn't be on drugs all the time." So even he said I shouldn't probably be on drugs all the time when I'm that young. I was like looking up exercise programs, and in the old days we didn't have the internet, so I had to order away from mail order, where they have to mail in like workout programs and stuff like that through the mail. I'd have to get money orders and send the money order away because it's like, so it took a long time to get information in those days. But yeah, I struggled with this all the way through, and I left my hometown in grade 12 to go to the big city, Edmonton, where I'm at now, to play higher level basketball, and just struggled. And in the big city, I went to a physiotherapist where they said my knee was kind of not tracking properly, and they gave me some exercises, which kind of helped a little bit, but not really. And it wasn't until I went to college, where I was playing college basketball, where I finally went to a chiropractor for the first time. And in my office, in our new patient room, I have a picture of myself two months before I went to chiropractor the first time. And I have like this reverse cervical curve. My head is totally jammed forward. And I think my chiropractor at the first time said, "Holy cow, look at your posture." And I said, "Silly chiropractor, it's not my posture, it's my knees." And he said, "What have you been doing all this time?" And I said, "I've been working on my knees." And he said, "How's that been working?" And I said, "It hasn't." So we actually ended up going under care. And in that first year, so much stuff changed for me. Not only did my knees get better, they didn't get 100% better until my first off season, because I'm basically pounding on my knees 6 days a week playing college basketball. But concentration got better. Used to get sick all the time. That got better. My free throw shooting percentage got better. My marks started to get better. I could sit more concentrated in school. And just the whole philosophy around it was pretty cool, because it kind of gave you self-empowerment that you have the power to be able to change your health, when before I kind of felt like a victim where nothing would work, and it was just sorry me, and I was just doomed to have bad knees for the rest of my life. So I switched from, I was taking recreation administration, which is funny because kind of a lot of the topics from that on leisure and decreasing stress is very relative to what we do today. But I wasn't really interested in that as an 18-year-old. And then I switched into science, and then my marks got better. And 7 years later, I went to Palmer. Well, I went to Palmer, graduated. Now I've been in practice for 22 years, I think 22 years now. And yeah, and we can talk about all that stuff, but we've written a book, and I've been to a few different offices. My wife has spoken all over the world. So we've been to about 13 different countries. We have chiropractors that are friends of ours around the whole world, and we basically eat, breathe, and live chiropractic.
I love it, man. And I've actually, the way that I connected with you was connecting with your wife, Brandi, first. I heard her speak the first time, and she's a powerful woman, man.
Oh, yes. Yeah, like when I first met her, it was funny. It was the same month I opened my practice. And I had these cool little business cards, and I don't even know if we used to like print out business cards on your computer, and they're like perforated business cards. My mom had designed a business card for me, and so I had this little business card with me, and we were out at a country bar, and I met her, and I kind of gave her my card, and she said, she basically called me a fake doctor, because she was all in the medical field and thought chiropractors were insane quacks, dangerous, crazy people. And so she's funny, because she basically went from being anti-chiropractic to basically being like one of the biggest chiropractic advocates that I know, even sometimes more than me sometimes. She's like a reformed smoker, right? So someone who's, and then now they don't, so they just give everybody heck if they're smoking and saying, stop it.
Yeah. And, I remember her having a pretty amazing story too, where, she had some pretty serious health issues that you were able to help her with, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like when I first met her, it was funny how she was saying that kind of chiropractic was crazy, but then you go into her. When I was dating her, I'd go to her place and she'd bulk container of Tylenol on her counter, and she had Pepto-Bismol like all in her fridge, and like she had she used to get bladder infections all the time, and she was on all these drugs all the time, and it was so funny because you're kind of in that when you're young and you're like, you really kind of fall in love with somebody, but they have some habits that are totally against your values. And then you're kind of internally conflicted and you're like, well, but she's really cute and I really like her. But God, she's on total drugs and it's like crazy. And so it took a long time though, like really, like even for her to get her first adjustment, like I think I talked to her for about 6 months before she'd ever even get her first adjustment. And because she really didn't have pain, she didn't really have pain. So it wasn't really like a musculoskeletal, her complaints. It was more like her autonomic nervous system was in shambles. I actually started bringing her to chiropractic seminars because it's kind of like whenever you have a spouse or someone in your family, a lot of times they don't listen to you, right? You try to help them, but they have to listen to it from someone else. So I brought her to a whole bunch of seminars and she started listening to kind of the philosophy of chiropractic and how the body heals itself. And at the same time, she started under care, and she didn't have a miraculous story under care right away. She kind of was like, whatever, it's okay. Like, it's not a big deal. But it was that repetition. And it's just kind of constantly dialing down that stress response in the body and getting her more into that parasympathetic zone long enough to allow her body to kind of rebuild again. But she had, she had chronic fatigue when she was a kid. She had anemia. She had bladder infections all the way through as a child. And she had actually took antibiotics so much that she's allergic to sulfur drugs, so that she couldn't even go on antibiotics. She had to use, I think, penicillin or something like that, like when she had her infections. And then she had cervical cancer when she was like 18. And then when I met her, she was having issues with her kidneys. Like she's having still the chronic bladder infections, but then she's starting to also have kidney failure and stuff too. So, just like learning more about being empowered about the body, being under that chiropractic care, constantly dialing down the system. As we know now, it's kind of like feeding the brain with that proprioceptive input, so that the brain and the body start to become more aware of itself, so that they can kind of function on the same page. It just slowly started getting better. She's like stopped getting bladder infections as often. Like she finally went to her medical doctor one time and they did her kidney tests, and a lot of her numbers all started going back to normal. And it was just a really slow process until one day she's just like, holy cow, like the body can heal itself when it's in the proper state of ease, right? And we always say, I didn't do anything. Like I didn't fix her. Chiropractic didn't fix her. And we always say it's never about chiropractic. It's about optimal physiology. It's just that chiropractic was the tool that helped her body maintain that optimum physiology long enough so that it could heal itself.
Yeah, and you've built your practice kind of around that model, that salutogenic model, where it's really all about sort of proper nervous system function and and really facilitating the body's normal natural healing ability. Correct?
Yeah, not at first though. That's been an evolution. See, the challenge was, and I think this is a challenge of chiropractic, is we knew chiropractic worked, but we didn't know how it worked. And so how we used to explain it before is we'd say like the vertebra would go out of place and squash the nerve, and the nerve would go to that kidney, and then the kidney wouldn't work properly. And so consciously that would kind of make sense. Like, but we also knew that there's some people who don't get better. The end organ or the condition doesn't get better. So I was kind of caught in this quandary between knowing that chiropractic is a lot bigger than just back pain. Because even for me, I had exercise-induced asthma as well when I started under care, and just by opening up my rib cage and my posture and everything, I could breathe better. I didn't have exercise-induced asthma anymore. But it wasn't really that it was treating asthma. And I think the hard part is that we're all brought up in a pathogenic model. So we all think that health has to be treating a disease or curing something. And And then when you see that chiropractic can help all these things, you think automatically that chiropractic is treating your immune function, or chiropractic is treating asthma, or chiropractic is treating digestive problems. And it's not. That's the difference between the pathogenic and the salutogenic model. So I was stuck in that quandary in between, which is actually a lot of chiropractors, and that's who we work with nowadays, is a lot of chiropractors that are kind of stuck in that because they know that there's these cool benefits of optimum physiology of the body, and describe it in a pathogenic model. And then, especially like I'm from Canada, so if any listeners are from the UK or Australia, any places that are highly regulated, that's where we're getting in a lot of trouble for us, because we're saying we're treating stuff. And of course, when you say you treat a condition, that's in the pathogenic model. And the only way you can say that is if they do all these different research studies that say that you're curing that condition. And we don't have those research studies. So then chiropractors are getting in trouble for saying that. And it's just because we're kind of caught between that pathogenic model and that salutogenic model. And I think we developed the vitality shift to be able to get popped over to the salutogenic model, which still, again, pathogenesis is still in it, because it still encompasses it. We always say like a gauge where like one side is like treating disease or helping someone get out of the symptoms, and the other side is like maximizing health, right? And truly in a society, you kind of need both of those. But we really want to start focusing now on optimizing that movement, that physiology, which helps to grow health rather than fight disease, because the whole world is fighting disease right now. And like, how's that going? It's not going good. It's like fighting the dark instead of just turning on the light.
Yeah, no, that is a perfect analogy too. And you know, one thing that's really interesting, because I know you work with chiropractors on this, is your coaching is so unique. Because I remember when I was seeking out a coach and we ended up connecting, a lot of coaches out there, it's like, say what I say and do what I do, and you're going to be successful. And I think that there's a lot of cases where that's true. And you did something really different. I remember when we sat down for the first time and started going through things to build my practice up, you took a lot of time to learn about me, who I am, how I practice, my personality type, and then helped me to build my own systems based on that. So my practice was 100% congruent with who I am. And that's different. How did you guys get into that type of coaching? I mean, instead of, because obviously you guys have a successful practice model, it'd be easy to just give people scripts, give people systems. You're different. Why are you guys doing it that way?
Well, I think it's just from, and again, I think this goes with personalities and stuff too, because there are, like you said, there's some people who actually work better if you just give them a script. Mm-hmm. Do it this way, and then they just do it, and that's okay. And that works great for their personality. And we're very similar personalities. We're very empathetic. We like to connect individually with people. Like, connection is a big value of ours. And that did not work for me. And I've been coached by a lot of people, and there's like, do what I do. And it just felt like it wasn't sustainable. Like, I could do it, but it'd be stressful because I felt like I wasn't connecting the way that I'd like to connect. And so I found that if we could focus more on concepts rather than scripts, then you say it in your own language. And I think there's a lot of the work I did with John DeMartini is, in order to be a great communicator, we have to really know ourselves first. Because if we know ourselves first, what our values are, how we like to connect with people, and then realize that everybody we talk to is different, right? Because a lot of times we might just know ourselves, but then we just talk to everybody the same way that we like to be talked to. And again, the book, The 5 Love Languages, that's a great example as well. Is a lot of people will express love the way they like to be love expressed to them, but other people might experience it in a different way. Mm-hmm. And if it's just frustrating because you're not going to connect with people. And so if you know how you connect, I think it's the true level of communication is knowing what my values are and taking enough time to knowing what your values are and your communication style and your personality is, and then learning how to bridge the gap. It's kind of the oasis or the ultimate of connection. And again, I learned that through trial and error. When I first started practice, I was too afraid to tell people what my recommendations were because I was like a total people pleaser. And so I just be like, well, we'll see how it goes. And hopefully you like me and hopefully this will be good. And I wouldn't fully tell them what I'd recommend. And then when I got coached, I tried to go the other way where I just try to ramrod stuff and say, you're going to do it the way I do it. If you're not going to do it the way I'm going to do it, you're getting out. And that totally didn't feel authentic. So neither of those two ends felt good ever, right? Because I knew I wasn't giving them the full goods. And then the other ones, I wasn't giving people an opportunity to fail, because I know if I went to someone and I say I wanted, I wanted help with whatever's going on in my body. And after one visit, they said, you're going to commit to me for like the rest of your life. Boom, right now. I wouldn't do it, because I'm like, I need time to warm up. I need time to kind of get to know people. And I said, so if that wouldn't work for me, like how am I going to be able to expect to do that for my practice members and the people that I see? So we kind of developed our communication in that kind of give and take in the middle, where we can kind of meet people where they're at. We don't stay there. We meet them where they're at. We don't stay there, but we just them across the path. And so we always use like an analogy of a bridge across the valley. You're not going to just run across and just yank them across, kicking and screaming to your side. You're just going to kind of walk with them. And for one, it's extremely stressful for a chiropractor. Like if you're trying to force people to do stuff and they don't really want to do it, it's exhausting. And the challenge is that takes away energy from the people that do want what you have, right? And so if you can just meet them at where they're at, but kind of almost dangle a carrot ahead of them just to go, just take one more step with me, take one more step with me, and then just leave it there. And then each person's going to be at a different step. So we always say, we'll care as much as you care, and then just bring you a little bit more, but we're not going to carry you, so that we can preserve our energy for everybody.
That's good. Can you talk a little bit about the 4 different personality types that you guys have sort of named, and how you would communicate with those different personality types?
Yeah. And again, there's lots of different, personality type tests and stuff out there. When I wrote my book, The Underdog Curse, I just kind of created my own, just because it's easier you don't have to you're not like plagiarizing other stuff. So we just kind of created our own. So the first is more of a driver personality, and we call that alpha, like an alpha dog or like an alpha wolf. And those are the people that are just pretty direct. And those used to be really scary for me, because I'm like the, you're like, I'm the empathetic one. Obviously you can tell I'm not the alpha dog. And so like you kind of jump around and dance around them. And that sometimes actually annoys the heck out of an alpha, because an alpha just kind of wants to get to the point, get the goods, get out of there. They're more kind of focused on getting the results. Second one is more the dolphin, and the dolphin is more someone who's like kind of a party waiting to happen. And so they're the ones, we always kind of compare it to different things, if it's a chiropractor or a patient or something, but the chiropractor is the one who will just get her done, do it my way. They have a tendency to be more like that. The dolphin has a little bit more tendency to be talking a lot, right? And so they like just having so much fun. Sometimes they get off track because they're chatting. As you can tell, I'm a little bit of a dolphin too. But that's the second one. And then we have the ant, which is more of the analytical, right? And the analytical likes lots of information, and they're a little bit more meticulous. And so when we talk to them, we're going to be a little bit more slow, and we're going to let them process things, because they take a little while to make a decision. If you rush them without enough information, they get stressed out, and it's not going to go very good. And then we talked about the lab. So the lab is it's like the Labrador Retriever, where that's more kind of what I am too. I'm the dolphin in the lab, and everyone always goes, "Ah, isn't that nice?" They're very empathetic, and so the good thing about it is that the labs are very good at connecting with people. They're a little bit better one-on-one than in large groups. But the challenge with them is sometimes they'll take on more stress than they need to, or they'll have a really hard time with boundaries. And they hold a lot of stress inside. So if they're not very good at boundaries, unfortunately, they're the ones that their health can suffer quite a bit as well, because they're kind of taking on the load of the world. And so if I'm talking to practice members on either one of these, if it's an alpha, we're just being a little bit more direct, getting to the point. Not they don't want to talk around in circles. They want to kind of get right to it. If we're talking to a Labrador, we're going to connect with them better, because Labradors really want people to care for them. They say they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. the ants are going to be definitely wanting more information. So being able to give them extra information if they need it, because they like to have that, and then giving them time to make a decision. And then dolphins, we just want to have a good time. Like if your office is boring and they're going to be kind of like out of there. So you want to kind of keep things a little bit exciting. So just being able to flex and bend, no matter what your own personality style is pretty good. And again, a lot of people, once they understand that to communicate in different styles, it actually decreases a lot of stress, because a lot of times they're just trying to communicate as if it's like, if I'm a lab, that there's a lab in front of me, and if it's an alpha, that's why it's scary, because like, oh my gosh, they're so direct. I would never say that, because oh my goodness, that's forthright, or they're telling you exactly what's on your mind. I'd never tell you what's on my mind. Rules me, right? So anyway, that's just like a brief synopsis of those 4 personalities.
Yeah, and your book, The Underdog Curse, I love the book, by the way. If you're a chiropractor, even if you're not a chiropractor and you're watching, it's a great one to pick up. What's the Underdog Curse?
Well, I think this is my evolution out of becoming that externally driven person. So if you're a lab, a lot of times we're more externally driven. So we really care about what other people think. We're a people pleaser. And it's funny, because when you're very empathetic and you're a people pleaser and you want everybody to support you, but you have internal aspirations, or if you have drive to improve, it's a quandary, because if you're not doing well at something, or if you're having a challenge, people are more likely to support you because they feel bad for you. If you're excelling or you're doing really well, people are less likely to feel sorry for you and support you. So I found this, not only like I found this kind of reflecting on my life on basketball, is in basketball, I played the best when I always surrounded myself with people that were better than me, which is always good, because you always want to surround yourself with people that are better than you. I had a kind of a realization when I was in high school. I was on a really amazing basketball team, and I was probably the 4th or 5th best player. I was on the starting lineup, but I was about the 4th or 5th best player. And that really kind of let me thrive, because I could maximize my potential, but I never really stood out, and I was never the best, so I didn't have all the pressure on me. Then I went to college, and I picked a college that was a college team that wasn't that good, because I was kind of afraid I wanted to make sure I made the team. So I kind of picked a lower college team. And as soon as I made the team, we had a one-on-one tournament, and I won it. And I could beat everybody on the team. And I was a rookie. And in my brain, I was like, this is ridiculous, because I always had to be striving to be as good as someone else. I was never comfortable with being the leader myself. And so I kind of like sabotaged my college career playing, because I just wasn't comfortable in that role. And later on in chiropractic, the same thing happened. Is if I was struggling in practice, everybody was supporting me. But if I did really well, nobody started supporting me anymore. And so subconsciously, I just sabotaged my practice and my success until people would feel better for me. And so I came up with the term the underdog curse, is because I love underdogs. Like Rocky was my favorite movie growing up. Like Rocky was like the underdog, and he came from behind, and then he succeeded. And then even in the movie, once he succeeded, he got all cocky and lazy and got his butt kicked, and then he had to be the underdog again. And that was the only way that he actually succeeded. And that's why I resonated so much with it. And so I kind of said, I need to break the underdog curse, where I feel like I always need to be the underdog all the time. And so I think that limits your growth if you always have to be an underdog. There's also an overdog. So someone who always has to be the best at everything, or else they'll never even try it. And that's the exact opposite of the underdog curse. And either one of those will limit your growth, because if you're afraid to try anything new because you might not be good at it, that limits your growth. And if you always have to be the underdog and you can never be a leader or be successful in your own right, that limits your growth. So we want to be kind of underdog flexible. So that was kind of the whole idea behind the book. And then it just I kind of just described the processes that I went through my life, and some of the trauma you go through being a people pleaser. And I have some pretty funny stories in there.
Yeah, I love the book, because our personalities, I think, are so alike, and I just connected with it so well. I got kind of a deep question for you, man. With everything going on in the world right now, how can chiropractic make the world better?
Well, I think First of all, right now, because it's so crazy, I think we really have to go inward and help each other, because a lot of the chiropractors that we work with, and including ourselves, like there's so many things going on in the world that we actually don't have control over. And there's so many things in the world where people are so stuck in their reptilian brain that they're not even receptive to hearing at this point anything different. Whether you're on our side of it, in their mind, we're stuck in our ways. And if you're on the other side of it, they're stuck in their ways. And I'm talking about us kind of peoples, the empathetic people. We have to really protect ourselves. So I think for us, like, we stopped watching the news in March. We're not watching the news. We're really being careful of how much time we're on social media. I have a tendency to just look at headlines, and so Brandi's like, we're not looking at the news headlines and all stuff, or even the news. And so I thought it was better because I was just looking at news headlines. And she's like, we'll be on a Sunday. She's like, are you doom scrolling? And I'm like, I'm doom scrolling. Ah. And so I think it's really about protecting ourselves, and also getting into doing things that are really that can take your focus away from that. Because I think we need to stay really strong. We need to focus on our practice members. We need to focus on what we can do for the people in our four walls right now. That's the biggest thing. Even for us, I think we had 6 or 7 trips, because we travel the world all the time. And I think Brandi's still on the phone right now, because with these air credits, we're trying to like make sure that we keep track of them all, because I think we'll be flying, not paying for tickets, I think, for the next 2 or 3 years, because we have so much credit in airline tickets. But we just started golfing more because we need an activity that takes our mind off stuff, because we need to stay strong throughout this whole thing. I think we still need to participate in the bigger picture. Like, I know you guys down in California, yeah, and actually in the States, you guys can do a little bit more stuff. In Canada, like, it is kind of weird. We're kind of handcuffed. Like, if we say anything against anyone or say anything about health more than they'll allow us to say about health, they come after us, right? And so it is a challenge. So I think it's really about protecting our space, hanging out with like-minded people, and focusing on the things that we can actually make a difference. Because our practice members that are coming in every day are so stressed out, and they need chiropractic more than ever. And for us, that's why we had to shift too, is because the way we describe chiropractic, we can still spread the message around like crazy. And we're not talking about it in a pathogenic model, but we're talking about it in a salutogenic model, in a certain way that we can't get in trouble by our regulatory boards, because you can't. That increased movement increases information to your brain, which increases your body's awareness of itself, which increases balance. And then we do all these objective findings that back that up all the time. It's hard to argue with that. So I think it's really trying to focus on the things that we can actually make a difference with right now.
I love it, man. Well, one thing I like to do when I finish up one of these conversations is I'd like to give you the last word, man. What do you think the world needs to hear from you right now?
I think it's tough, because there's so much stuff going on, and I think that we just need to focus on what we can actually do. If we watch the news, focus on things that actually make us more aggravated, that is not helpful. Focus on stuff that even you agree with, that makes you infuriated all the time. That's also not that helpful. So it's hard, because it's in between the two things. And so I think really, I think chiropractors out there, because most people, is it chiropractors that are listening to this mostly?
It's a mix. Yeah.
It's a mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think chiropractors, if they just really focus on connecting with their practice members, trying to make their office a place that feels more normal and connected. That's what we really focus in our office right now. I always say we want it to be like Cheers, like the old show Cheers, where we're in a city of 1 million people, but we want it to be like a small town feel where everybody knows your name, so people can actually come in and go, oh, this kind of. We still have to follow whatever regulations that we still have in our town, but still make it as normal as possible, so that we're there to be the bone for our practice members. And I think for other people out there, it's super important to make sure you really keep control over your social your social circle. Sometimes even for practice members, they have family members that are so against what their values are, and they just go toe to toe and fight with them all the time. And I just don't know if at this time, when everything's at the peak in your, especially family, because that's your closest concentric circle, I just don't know if that's a valuable use of your time at the moment. Because most people, when they're ready to fight, you're not going to change their point of view in that fight. And it's also going to deplete you, especially if you're an empathetic person. So I think it's really about like protecting your space, protecting focus, keeping yourself active, making sure you're still under chiropractic care. So I think keeping all those things that you normally do to stay healthy, really healthy, because there's so much of a drag right now in the society where it's just like constant stress. It's just the cosmic, I could just call cosmic load of stress that I think we all just need to focus on self-care and connecting and supporting the ones that are like-minded in our own tribes.
I love it, man. Well, Dr. Don, thanks for coming on and doing this, man. It's always great seeing you and connecting with you like this. And for those of you guys watching, if you heard something that's valuable from Dr. Don, I encourage you to share this, like it, comment, let us know what you like. I've been reading through the comments. I don't know if you've been able to see them, Dr. Don.
Oh, I haven't seen them, no.
But people are loving what you have to say, man. And
I'll look at it after when I get it on Facebook.
Yeah, do it. So, guys, thank you, and have a great weekend. Dr. Don, thank you, sir. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, keep up the great work there, brother.
Appreciate it, man. We'll chat soon.